Hi, it's part two. This is the Michelle Birdsong in New York City. Part two of excerpts from David Icke and Rose McGowan interviews. The last part one, I was reading about Rose McGowan explaining how she froze when Harvey Weinstein came on to her. And then I said, when I was around 9 years old, while standing on stage giving a speech to the student body, I froze and disappeared. My body stood there like a statue. I had, due to fear, run away from my senses to unconsciousness, to nothingness. Nothingness. N-O-T for not. H-I-N-G for hing. Not hing. Hing means an Indian spice. The Indian spice is Jesus Christ. Govinda Singh. Nest. Nest. Entered Eve energy, see true. Okay, when Eve enters Govinda Singh's nest, she sees true. Nest. Entered eyes. Stranger. When she stood on, okay. As I stood there suppressing my feeling of panic, I made eye contact with a little boy in the audience. I didn't know him. He looked annoyed. I was thrown into bewilderment. Now this is 9-year-old little girl standing on stage trying to make a speech. Then I unconsciously, automatically ran away. I stood there on stage, silent, unmoving, unaware of myself and my surroundings. Okay, she had eye contact with a stranger. Okay, stranger entered his eyes, a stranger's. Okay. And that scared her, so she ran away and felt bewilderment, feeling of being perplexed and confused. There was bewilderment at the shift of government policy. I was experiencing a shift in government. My government was my mother and my teacher, their policy. They had never put me on the spot like this before. Never put me in the spotlight alone, expecting me to say a speech without warning me about, preparing me for the barrage of emotions that came over me, blocking my mouth from speaking, clouding my brain from seeing clearly, locking my mouth from speaking. My eyes, and what is that? Clouding my brain from seeing clearly, clouding my eyes from seeing. My intellect was frozen, unable to compute the meaning of the situation I found myself in. I was mystified, unable to real alive, what I was supposed to be doing, how to override my bollocksed, discombobulated brain, intellect. I was experiencing jumbled signals, jumbled decoded, J for justified, period. Then U for you, M for my, B for brain, LED for lead. Justified, U, my brain, lead. Okay, my discombobulated, bollocks brain led me. My brain was a mess, failed the test, because I hadn't been led by my teacher or mother to think through what I was expected to do. I was completely untutored about how to accept, own, and integrate, release my blocking, undifferentiated emotions. I was experiencing the complexity of my nervous system, changing emotional states, which flooded my being, and I couldn't relax and breathe normally and function with my senses normally. I was overwhelmed with fear, a little girl speaking to a room full of strangers, not knowing why. Okay, strangers decoded. S for C, T for true, R for her. A, angers. C, true, her angers. Not. I was hurt because my teacher or my mother put me in that position. I was suppressing my anger at my mother and teacher for putting me in this position. Yes. Okay. I didn't exactly know who was to blame. I didn't take responsibility because I hadn't been adequately explained to, or I would have said no. Although I would have said no, I don't want to make a speech before the whole school. Although I wasn't allowed to say no, so why should they explain anything to me? I was a slave, a robot, one who does as she is told without asking questions. My other mother simply refused to answer any personal question about myself or my behavior. My biological mother got mad if I posed a question or she tried to distract my intellect from needing an answer, which left me with an unfinished cycle, i.e. a question needing answer. Logical. Logic, a will. Okay? You need to use your will to express logic. When I was 5, sitting alone on a church pew, the preacher, blind Elder Burton, bellowed to the congregation, me, burn in hell for eternity. Blind, decoded. Blind, L for wheel, IND, the 8th Avenue train. Blind, rolling wheels of train. Okay, so he was on a train with blind wheels. He didn't know where he was going. He didn't know where he was taking me when he yelled, burn in hell for eternity. My ears heard, my eyes looked up and saw his face with sunglasses. My consciousness, my awareness went down into hell and burned for eternity. My Father, the Son, God, burns for eternity, as far as I know. He doesn't want me to merge into him and burn for eternity. As you know, the sun is on fire, right? He burns all the time. He wants me to live separate as an individual in heaven, on earth, the physical heaven. So he trained. So, is that the train divide? Or he trained divide? Heaven, decoded. Heaven, Eve, equals Venus. Divide. D for daughter. I for pleasure. Victory varied for V. ID for identity. E for Eve. Daughter pleasure. Victory varied. Identity Eve. In other words, her victory is varied. She's not just burning on fire all the time. She gets pleasure, she gets hot, she gets cold, all the emotions you have on earth in the physical heaven. This is what her Father, the Son wanted for her, so he could watch her. So let's see. The physical heaven, so the train divide makes sense to me now. But at 5 years old, I was overwhelmed with terror at the speed and power of the preacher's voice to send me to hell by speaking one loud sentence. Sentence decoded. Sent Eve for Eve, N for North, C for Carolina, E for event. Sent Eve, North Carolina event. I was sent to North Carolina for an event with Jesus Christ. My choice, my decision. I wanted a hug and a kiss. I make no demands of my spiritual boyfriend, Jesus Christ. When the kiss and hug were not forthcoming in North Carolina, I was content just to be able to see him and to hear him in person. Person, Radhaswami. Radhaswami means Lord of the Soul. Person, put an E here for reason, R-E-A-S-O-N. Person, reason, Radhaswami, Lord of the Soul. He didn't give me a physical hug and kiss, proof that we had a real relationship, but he married me again and gave me a baby, a little girl, Aria Elizabeth Michelle, who had been my master, Ariel, when I was Tulsi Sahib. Proof that he gave me a baby, my swollen belly, and his word. Okay, so, okay. And I saw him pull 3 eyes over to himself supernaturally. It was very weird to see that. And so did the thousands of his other disciples there in Fayetteville, North Carolina in 2018. See this. Fayetteville. Linda Faye of Clarksville, Tennessee, is my cousin. Cousin decoded. You see, you find messages in these words. This is what I'm doing. C, order. U.S., pleasure. I for pleasure. N for enter. Cousin. C, order. U, Satsangi Salvador, Sin, N, North Carolina. Okay, they sinned because they snubbed me, because I had been homeless and I didn't have all my teeth and my clothes didn't look expensive. And so those Satsangi Salvadors sinned when they snubbed me, because they had been my friends for 45 years. And Jesus said, what you do to the least among us, you do to me. So he is inside me, at my pineal gland between the left and right hemispheres, and he feels what I feel. So when they snubbed me, they snubbed him. Okay? Perplexed. Adjective. Completely baffled. Very puzzled. Puzzle. LED, LED, brain. Okay? My eyes registered. Seeing. Okay, this is still when I'm 9 years old, standing on stage, trying to give a speech filled with emotions, filled with terror. My eyes